Here's an update to my John Deere 318 Vanguard 23 engine project. The engine needs to be installed 1 inch above the factory plate so the PTO has clearance and so the drive shaft aligns with the factory drive shaft. This mounting plate is made out of 1 inch square tube, and it's cut and drilled to match the mounting plate on the bottom of the engine. It's approximately 3.5 inches off of the front, and it's centered left to right in the middle of the tractor. That will give the engine enough height for the PTO to clear and also make the drive shaft straight shot to the back. And now for the PTO clutch. This is an Ogura GT1 TR05, Ogura OGURA GT1 TR05 clutch, and I got it from Extreme PTO. And it takes a couple custom pieces I had to make here. It takes a bushing on the inside, and then this retainer is going to go on the outside to hold the clutch. So this bushing here, the inside is chamfered to match the radius here on the drive shaft. It's a 1 inch shaft, and this radius here is turned to match the inside of the clutch. You don't want to have the pressure on the bearing here, because as you squeeze it on, you'll actually hurt this bearing and the outer bearing. That'll make more sense once I slide it on the shaft. So if you do need to make something like this, it's 1 inch inside diameter, and the length that I used for my measurements is just a little bit less than 1 inch. Pretty close. 0.9105. So 1 inch would probably be a little bit too much. So that's what I ended up with. 0.9. And again, this outside diameter has to fit on this bushing right here. So the idea is it slides onto the shaft, and then this PTO has a bearing on the outside and a bearing on the inside, and they are pressed onto this bushing or this hub that goes all the way through the PTO. That's one solid piece. So you want to make sure you clamp the hub, because like I said before, if you squeeze these bearings together, you can easily break the bearing and make a bind and make them wear prematurely. So you want to make sure you clamp this bearing onto the PTO shaft. You do not want to clamp the inside race of the bearing into the engine, because you'll pull it out around. The other part to this PTO on this Briggs 23 is you have to have some type of means to keep the PTO magnet from spinning. So this is simple enough. It's just a piece of bar stock with a bolt, a couple nuts, and some blue Loctite to hold everything together. So in theory, we put the bushing on and we slide on this PTO. And as you slide the PTO on, I'll put a nut with a lock washer to hold this. That'll keep the magnet from spinning. And on this side of the PTO, I made something like this, which is basically a clamp that sits inside of this bushing again, and the bolt fine thread then threads into the shaft. So if I'm right here, the PTO will stay where it is because it's pressed onto that center shaft, and it should last forever because there's no pressure on the bearings. What might happen is with heating and cooling, maybe this bushing will slide in off and on of that race. I'm not sure if that's the case or not. If that happens, I'll take it apart and do something else. But even if that is the case, all I'd have to do is pull this bolt out and machine a couple new spacers. But I think with this design, it's you can't go much better than this because all the pressure is on the center shaft and not the bearings. So that's where we're at. The PTO is on. I have the stub shaft mounted on the other side of the engine, and I'll go over that when we start to build the drive shaft. Everything's been painted, and I still have quite a bit of finish work to do on the paint. In fact, I might repaint the fender pan because it didn't come out as well as I hoped, so I might redo that. But that's where we're at. I hope to have this completed here in the next couple weeks or so. All right, thanks for watching.